So we've been hinting at a reality. Now we're going to dive into the reality. One of the realities that Madhvacharya established a strong foundation for Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Are we going to have a question and answer session somewhere? Somewhere, sometime, maybe. Definitely or maybe? Definitely, okay. Have you ever wondered? It's good to wonder, it's good to be inquisitive. Why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas in Madhvacharya's line? Why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept sannyas, accept initiation from one of the other sampradayas that may have been more like his teachings? You ever wondered that one? Maybe you haven't wondered that one. Maybe you don't know enough about the other teachings to wonder about it. We're going to hear some very different teachings than you're used to hearing. You know, we're used to hearing from our acharyas in disciplic succession. And one of these, after the class kind of questions that somebody wanted to ask, I'm anticipating we're going to have that question this evening. Why is there such a divergence? Not only, the scriptures are one scripture, but the disciplic successions have such diversity in their understanding of the scripture. Of course, there's Dvaita and Advaita, or Advaita and Bhakti, very divergent from the same scriptures. And then even amongst the Vaishnava lines, it's very divergent. You'll see as we go along. So why are there differences? And in amongst those differences, why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu select Madhvacharya? Because we heard Madhvacharya visited Navadvip. According to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, long before he appeared in his dream, said, I'm going to take initiation in your line and propagate your teachings. Of course, some of them he did, and other ones were different. This is called Shakha Bait. I touched on this topic. We're doing it again. There's a tree, and a tree has a trunk, and the tree trunk has branches, and some of the branches go this way, and some of the branches go that way, and there's variegatedness within the branches that don't have all of the characteristics of the tree. They're fundamental characteristics from the same tree, the trunk and the branches. So Mahaprabhu's teachings are technically a shakha, a branch. And traditionally, shakhas, or branches, have some differences, Veda, Shakha Veda. And there are differences. And you'll hear those differences. However, the trunk is the trunk, and one of the reasons, at least it's described, that there are foundational teachings that were very strong. So if you want to build a good house, one of the things you have to do is build a good foundation. Conversely, you don't have a good foundation, the house might be a little shaky. It may not last as long. But a good foundation makes for a good house, a good start at least. So the principal tenet of Madhvacharya is in his Nava Prameyas, or 9 essential teachings, 9 pillars of Madhva, the first one, there's one entity that's fully independent, and all other entities, matter or spirit, are dependent on the one independent. There's a source of everything, and everything emanates from the source. There's one source. There's only one source, and that source is a person. Very different, certainly very different from Shankaracharya. And even there's distinctions between what Madhva said about the source of everything and what other acharyas had to say about the source of everything. They agree that there's a source of everything, and that source is a person, but very, very strong foundation. So that's what we're going to go to. In our line, here's 2 sources. One of them is Kavi Karnapur, another is Baladev Vidyabhusan, and his writing of Prameya Ratnavali. Who's Baladev Vidyabhusan anyway? He was initiated, he resided in a Madhva mutt and received Diksha within the Madhva line. You know that, right? You should know that. He was initiated in the Madhva line. So he was very familiar with Madhva's teachings. Later, through association with Gaudiya Vaisnavas, there's details, but he became very charmed with the elegant teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and so it's not like he abandoned, but he matured into a wonderful follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because of his roots with Madhvacharya, he wrote a book that's called Prameya Ratnavali. What does Prameya mean? It's statements or utterances that come from Pramana. From Pramana come Prameyas. That which is the source of everything to be known has its things to be known, and that's Prameyas. So he composed the Gaudiya version of Prameya Ratnavali, drawing from the essential teachings that he knew were the essential teachings of Madhvacharya. In fact, in his book, he wrote, Madhvacharya taught these things. Now, sometime after Madhvacharya and sometime after Baladev Vidyabhusan came Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We all know who is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There's probably nobody in this room that doesn't know who is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, wrote 100 books. I'll say it again. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote 100 books. And more than 80 of those 100 books had a certain theme that repeated itself, called Dasa Mula. Mula means root. Dasa means 10. The 10 essential teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For example, one of his 100 books was a book written in English that he personally paid for the printing of, and personally sent it to universities all around the world, not just McGill University in Toronto. It was to universities all around the world. Why? He wanted the world, at least the scholars, to know who was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he encouraged his son to do the same, and his son encouraged his followers to do the same, and we're being encouraged to do the same. The people of the world should know who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his teachings. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a book in English called, the title, in English, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, His Life and Precepts. Precepts means teachings. And the teaching sequence, it was Dasamula Tattva. That's one of his 100 books. I'm just repeating myself purposely. it became a theme in his writings. 10 essential teachings, which are the same as the 9 essential teachings of Madhvacharya, except he added that the source of everything is from the scripture. And then there's things that the scripture teach. Those are the 9 things. So Baladev Vidyabhusan was very familiar with the teachings of Madhva, and he was also very familiar with the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So he's a real good point of reference. And in his writings, he identifies that the followers of Lord Chaitanya, or Lord Chaitanya himself and his followers, were in the line of Madhvacharya. And that's right within Prameya Ratnavali and Kavi Karnapur, another very amazing author, a Gaudiya Vaishnava author, confirmed the same thing. And it's in our Bhagavad Gita as it is. So, in Prameya Ratnavali, here's the Sanskrit, he writes, the famous Madhvacharya received initiation from Vyasa personally. Now, he received initiation in 2 ways. Mantra, it's not emphasized so much, but teachings. He received teachings. That's a kind of initiation also. He was the Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru of Madhvacharya. And here's a nice chart, an ISKCON chart, showing the 4 sampradayas, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the far left shows Brahma. It's not comprehensive, but the disciple of Brahma was Narada. It doesn't show Vyas, but then there's Madhvacharya, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, etc. The point is, these are sources that indicate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the line of Madhvacharya. Now here's the 9 essential teachings of Madhvacharya. We're not going to go through all of them. We're going to go through a little bit about 3 of them. So remember that disclaimer, this isn't a comprehensive anything. They were just touching on some points, comparing and contrasting points. Here's the 9 tenets, or Nava Prameyas. Vishnu is the greatest living entity. Easy. Hari, Sarvottama, the Sarva Uttama, amongst Sarvas, amongst all. He's the Uttama personality. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Vishnu. Number 1. Then, right away, Shankaracharya, take that. The world is real, not the world is false. Jagat Satyam, not Jagat Mithya. Right off. Got his boxing gloves on. The world is real. Then comes his Beda, that, the question someone was wanting to know, what does the 2 things mean? There is categorical difference between Ishwar and Jiva. So, Prakriti is real, Hari is real, and the living entity is real. And the differences are real. Jiva, Isha, Beda. Real easy. Sanskrit is really easy. I'm not a Sanskrit person, but it's real easy. Jiva, Isha, Beda. That's a good start. That's the first 3 of 9. Then those jivas are Hari's followers. Anu, Chara. Anu, Chara. The jivas are followers of Hari. He's the leader, they're the followers. There's differences. Here's a primary difference. What does the follower do? It serves the leader. then here it starts to get like, what? Jivas have hierarchy among them. It's really complicated. We're not going to go into it. It's really complicated. We're not going to go into it. It's really complicated. It's not, our understanding. There's a big difference in our understanding and the way he teaches jivas. There's a hierarchy. Then, connected to the jivas have hierarchy, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this one. Liberation is to experience bliss according to the capacity of the jiva. So since jivas are of different capacity, of different nature and hierarchy, so also the bliss that they experience in liberation is different. That's a different teaching. There's some foundational teaching that says one living entity may have this rasa and that rasa and another rasa, and thus different experiences of bliss according to rasa. But that's not what Madhva is teaching about. It's not teaching about rasa. Now, number 7, 8, and 9. Similarity, like one-to-one similarity. The means to attain liberation is bhakti, sadhana. And there are 3 main pramanas. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Shabda. We agree fully with that one, or Mahaprabhu's teachings conform with that. Through all the Vedas, Hari is to be known. It's full confirmation. So we're going to spend some time on 3 of these. But before we do that, some of you may know there's well known and loved by followers of Lord Chaitanya, Araju Bhagavan Vrajeshitanyasta Dhamma Vrindavanam, etc. The last line, you see the last line? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Matham Idam Tatradara Na Para. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu holds these truths, like Declaration of Independence, to be self-evident. All men are created equal. It's American language. But Lord Chaitanya's language is different. The Supreme, here's tenets. They're similar to but different from. They're resting upon but different from. The Supreme Lord is to be worshipped. The Supreme Lord to be worshipped is the son of the king of Vraja. I could have said Krishna, but the son of the king of Vraja. Vrajatanayas, the son of the king of Vraja. Vrajesha Tanayas. His personal abode is Vrindavan, Tadama Vrindavanam. First line. The most favorable mode of serving him is that practiced by the young maidens of Vraja. Celebrated line, Ramya Kachit Upasana. Vrajavadhu Vargena, the group of Vrajavadhus, the ladies, the damsels of Vraja. Kalpita, they're the best. Most favorable mode of worship is the mode of the worship of the gopis in Vrindavan. Then, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. Now that phrase is also directly in the 12th canto Bhagavatam. Exactly that same phrase. So this, what you see on the screen here, this is a commentary written by a not so well-known commentator of Srimad Bhagavatam named Srinath Chakravarti Thakur. This is in his introduction section of his commentary, but it's very celebrated because it's a summation of Lord Chaitanya's tenets. So the Bhagavatam is the spotless Amala Pramana. source of reliable knowledge. And the goal, pure love of God, is the supreme goal of human life. Prema pum arto mahan. It's very clear. The Sanskrit is quite simple. And the last line, these are the views or tenets of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for which our respect is the greatest. So now quickly going through, these are Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Araja Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas. The Supreme Lord is to be worshipped. The Supreme Lord to be worshipped is the son of the king of Vraja. Now, as the son of the king of Vraja, he did things that were not so kingly, like his childhood pastimes. This is painting showing his mother, Yashoda, requested him, can you get the shoes of your father and bring them to your father? Nice little boy. And so Krishna toddled over, picked up the shoes. They were heavy, so he put them on his head and carried them to his father. Now imagine how his father felt. And imagine how his mother felt. And imagine how he felt seeing the love of his mother and father. So it's a rasa message. Tadava Dhamma Vrindavanam, that's his personal abode. And his personal abode, Vrindavan, is known also as Goloka, or the planet of cows. So Krishna loves the cows. And the cows love Krishna. Krishna loves his flute too. And Krishna loves the cowherd boys, and Krishna loves everyone. But he especially loves the damsels, Vrajavadhu, and the group of them, Vargena. They have the best mode of worship. And so that's one of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Why? Because it's within the Bhagavatam. Let's do this. The teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam are the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Say it again. The teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam are the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. But the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam are the highest. Therefore, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya are the highest. A equals B, B equals C, so A equals C. It's like axiomatic proof. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya are the highest. Why? The teachings of Lord Chaitanya are the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the highest. So the love of the damsels of Gopi, there's many nice paintings, so many nice paintings. The love and separation, and loving exchanges of so many kinds. Not worldly, not lust, boy-girl stuff. It's transcendental loving dealings. And there's the Srimad Bhagavatam, the spotless pramana, or evidence, or source of reliable knowledge. That's a good translation of pramana. Pramana can mean evidence, but source of reliable knowledge. Reliable knowledge comes from reliable source. And the source of the knowledge of the Bhagavatam is Vyasa. He compiled it under the order of Narada Muni. So there's our disciplic succession again. And there's Vyasa compiling Srimad Bhagavatam, disclosing Krishna, specifically disclosing Krishna in Vrindavan. And the pure love for Krishna is the goal. There's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu feeling love and separation. And he made that available through Nama Sankirtan. Very nice painting. There's Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and right behind them is Srila Prabhupada, and right behind Srila Prabhupada is all sorts of people who were lifted by the chanting of the holy name, including, it looks like, a girl that's showing off her body, and a dog, and all kinds of things. So those are fundamental tenets of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu following the fundamental tenets of Madhvacharya. So here's two images. There's a house, or we'll call it a superstructure. And what's below the superstructure? Substructure. And what's below the substructure? Footing to hold up the substructure that holds up the house. So good buildings have a good foundation. Now, the good foundation we may not see. Some of you have been to Kusum Sarovar. Most surely there's a good solid foundation beneath that structure. It's been up for a long, long time. But you don't see it. Or you can say, it's invisible. And ordinarily, unless you're a construction person, you don't necessarily even think about it or appreciate it. But those that know something about building materials, you got to have a good foundation. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the good foundation through fundamental teachings of Madhvacharya. And then came the practices, the bhakti practices, that were customized for the conclusion of the bhakti life. So here is the same list in simple language. There's the world is real. The differences amongst the jivas are real. There's gradation of bliss amongst the jivas in the state of liberation. Notice those are in yellow colors. There's more, but we're not going to be exploring those more. Vishnu is supreme. Jiva is distinct from the absolute truth. There's necessity of receiving mercy or grace in the bhakti process. Both the itihasas and Puranas are valid evidence. Madhva asserted, re-established that, much to the relief of other Vaishnavas, but he was very, he broke from tradition by doing that and in doing that. And finally, Hari has visheshas or attributes, confronting Shankara's teachings. So we're going to go through the highlighted items, those three at the top, a little bit. This is not, entirely a philosophy 201 class. It's just touching. So there's a superstructure of Gaudiya Vaisnavism. There's this substructure, and then there's a superstructure. So instead of simply saying Vishnu is supreme, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, he's supreme. It's not, the language is different. The principle, Vaishnavism, is the same, but it's just a little specific. It's Krishna. Madhva said, itihasas and Puranas, they're valid evidences. And Mahaprabhu took it further to say, and amongst those Puranas and itihasas, Bhagavatam is the ultimate. The idea here is taking the foundation and building on the foundation. I hope you get the idea. And then there's differences amongst jivas, but the differences in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings has to do with rasa. And even more than rasa, the stage of bhakti that's not just regulative, but spontaneous. We're not going to go into it. It's a nice topic, but not tonight, please. Raga. Vidhi, or rules and regulations, with proper association and guidance from qualified Vaishnavas, can bring one to the spontaneous stage. In fact, we'll say it this way. We're all followers of Lord Chaitanya. Some more deeply, some are more beginning, but we're followers of Lord Chaitanya. And followers of Lord Chaitanya means followers of Rupa Goswami, because Rupa Goswami was the foremost of Lord Chaitanya's followers. were Rupanugas. And a follower of Rupanuga, even while doing the vidhis, the rules and regulations, it's the path of raga, or spontaneous devotion. The seed is there for those who are his good followers. So be a good follower of Rupa Goswami, and you're on the path of spontaneous devotion. Emphasized in Lord Chaitanya's teachings is the special importance of the Bhagavan feature, above and beyond, including, but above and beyond, Brahman and Paramatma realization. Appreciation for both, not minimizing, but specializing and giving special attention to the Bhagavan feature. Then this topic of attributes or visheshas. What's the relationship of those attributes? Well, the attributes of Bhagavan are his attributes. So they're, in one sense, from a Madhva perspective, they're non-different. Everything in relation to Hari is Hari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has a further extension, like the sunshine and the sun. They're inseparable. But the sunshine is not the sun. And therefore, there's a oneness and difference between the sunshine and the sun. It's just a further refinement or emphasis in Mahaprabhu's teachings. So now we're going to go back to, of these three topics, Madhva's topic, the world is real. We don't disagree with that. The world is real. From the Advaita perspective, the world isn't real. What's the world? Mithya. Remember? Wasn't too long ago. Just yesterday, right? Brahman Satya Jagat Mithya. It's not just a phrase that Prabhupada said many times. It's Shankara's teachings. A fundamental teaching. The world is Mithya. Jagat is Mithya. Now, what does Mithya mean? That's interesting. And we're not going to go into it too much. A little bit, just touch on it. And if you really want to go into it a bunch, I invite you to listen to the three-part, about 8-hour seminar that Hari Parshad gave. 1 hour plus was just on what's the meaning of Mithya. We're not going to do that. We're going to spend a few minutes. What is Mithya? Well, there's at least 5 different schools within the Advaita teachings that says what Mithya is. They don't agree. There's diversity amongst the monists. It's all one, but there's diversity amongst the all one folks. And one of the big it's all one folks was Madhusudana. Madhusudana, what's this other name? Vachaspati? Saraswati? Madhusudana Saraswati. We'll hear some more about him. This is some back and forth and back and forth, and Madhva countered Shankara's teachings, and then another Advaita countered his teachings, and then some Madhva countered the countered teachings, and Madhusudana Saraswati wrote a big thing explaining this Mithya term in his own way. And his Mithya term is, Mithya means it just doesn't exist. It's false. We're not going to go into it. But that's his teaching. It just doesn't exist. And when you realize Brahman, then you realize this world doesn't exist. You don't exist. The chair doesn't exist. The noisy fans in the room don't exist. Nothing. It's just there's only one thing that exists. What's that one thing? Brahman Satya Jagat. It just doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. The world dissolves. Anyway, there's counter arguments to that notion, plenty. And there's another of the five. There's another school we're not going to go into. And that is, Mithya just means it's dependent upon. Brahman is the one independent reality, and then there's realities that are dependent. The example of this school says there's water, and water is truth, and then there's oceans, and there's waves in the ocean, and the ocean and the waves in the ocean, that's Mithya. It's not really an ocean or waves, it's just water. That which is dependent, similarly, that's the metaphor. That which is dependent on Brahman, and has no independent existence other than it's resting upon Brahman, that's Mithya. Now, we're not going to go into it, because it's not a good ideology. So Madhva opposed this idea. We're going to especially speak about this idea that Mithya, it just doesn't exist. It's illusion. So covering Brahman is illusion. Then one can ask, okay, if there's only one thing, and that's Brahman, so where'd this illusion come from? That means illusion is also Brahman, right? Because there's only one thing. No, there's only one thing, and that's Brahman. So what's Mithya? It doesn't exist. Oh, come on, you're pulling my leg. Anyway, it goes around in circles. Madhva has different statements. We'll go through a few of them. This world does not exist idea. Here's a problem. What about Shastra? You Advaitins have faith in Shastra, but there's only one thing, that's Brahman, then Shastra doesn't exist either. That which you have faith in doesn't exist. Or within Shastra it speaks of creation by Vishnu. So what's that? Is that also it doesn't exist? It's just Mithya? Then what's Mithya doing inside Scripture? So the answer to that from this group of people is they say, well, it's just Shastra is like a dream. And the dream is to help you wake up. Here comes a tiger. I'm awake. Oh, there wasn't a tiger after all. Interesting. But you know, you got to get interesting to go for. So, Vaidiraj Tirtha, we heard today, we were at a temple that he was very much involved with and very responsible for. I had the good fortune of getting a tour from all those, so many of the different altars there. One of the altars was an altar that Vaidiraj Tirtha established, because before he established many things, there wasn't anything. So one of the things that happened, as best as I can remember from this afternoon, there was a king whose son had died, a Muslim king whose son had died. And Vaidiraj Tirtha was sitting by his tomb, chanting japa. And the Muslim king said, "What kind of sadhu are you? This is the tomb of a dead person. It's a contaminated place. What are you doing?" He said, "Your son isn't dead." So what do you mean? He died. We buried him. That's what we do in our religion. We bury the dead body. He said, "But your son is alive." What? So So they exhumed the whatever, however they put the casket or something, and his son was alive. Yeah, Vaidiraj, Tirtha. And the king was like, wow, how'd you do that? And he wanted to give him wealth. And he said, I'm a sannyasi, I don't have any interest in wealth. The king insisted and insisted and insisted. So Vaidiraj accepted the wealth and went to the Ganga and threw it all in the Ganga. And the king saw that he did that. So he said, no, I want to give you some wealth. I want to give you some wealth. I want to give you some wealth. All right. So he took the wealth back to Udupi. He buried the wealth in the ground and placed a marker where he put that wealth, silver and gold and whatever, and put a cobra, a murti of a cobra, because remember the position of cobras protecting the Dham. And when the day comes that there's need of this wealth, and this is where it is. And if you try to take it, you're going to get cobraized. The protectors are going to get you. Something like that. Vaidiraj. So Vaidiraj was prolific. One of the things, we're going to hear some more about him, I guess, tomorrow, yes? Let's see. We're going to hear more about him sometime. And prolific, and one of his gifts was he was a kavi. He was, he was very creative in his way of describing things poetically and very, very beautifully. Ornamental language. Vaidiraj. So here's when he comments on this teaching, because it's a teaching in Shankara's Bhasya. He said, in Vedic culture, the Acharya is the father, and the scriptures are like the mother. You, non-dualists, you're like a man who kills his own mother. What? On the one hand, the Advaitin claims an enormous debt to Shastra as a man has to his mother. On the other, he nullifies their worth by saying they're vyavadharika, or similar, nirvachaniya. We've discussed those different word jugglery terms. It's a mundane reality. Like it's like something that you may have in a dream. Here comes a tiger, warning you. Don't get involved in fruitive activities because you'll suffer, and all those other things that the Vedas teach. It's a mundane reality. You place value in the Vedas and then you discredit them. And in our Western way of thinking things, it's biting the hand that feeds you. So instead, Madhva gave very strong scriptural, logical arguments to prove, for a reasonable person at least, the world is real. And that's one of his teachings. The world is real. It's not false. It's temporary, but it's real. And there's some other very sensible, common sense arguments. Why would Krishna ask Arjuna to fight if the world is unreal? Didn't think of that one. Maybe you have to rethink the idea the world is not real. And then there's another, if you accept that the world is not real, then just become complacent. Because it's not real anyway. Or, if it's not real anyways, then let me at least enjoy it while I can. because it's unreal. It's going to fade and disappear and so many things. So that's just a drop not just a bucket, but a drop in an ocean of misgivings about the world is not real, or mithya, jagat mithya. That's a fundamental doctrine. Then, according to Madhvacharya, there's gradations of bliss and liberation. There's the Sanskrit mukta, ananda, taratamya vad. Vad means doctrine. There's gradations, taratamya, of the ananda that's found in liberation. So there's something similar in Gaudiya Vaisnavism, but here's Madhva's view. Taratamya vada, gradations of bliss, according to Madhva. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Therefore, souls are different, right? It's one of the Panchabheda. This soul, that soul, there's differences. Souls are different, no problem. Swarup Bheda. And souls have a hierarchy. Now this is, his view is different than ours, but it's a teaching. So amongst souls, there's a hierarchy. Not just, temporal, but fundamental differences. Each soul has a different intensity of sadhana, which is true. Moksha is discovery of one's swarup. That's a Bhagavatam teaching. Here's the Bhagavatam verse from Canto 2. Therefore, there's gradations of bliss. Now, this principle is taught in his Anu Vakyana. What's his Anu Vakyana? That's his second commentary on Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra, because Trivikram Acharya requested, could you write a more expanded one? The other one was too difficult for ordinary people to understand. Fluff it out, make it larger so people can understand what you're meaning to say. And then he wrote a commentary on that one. And then Jayatirtha wrote a commentary on that commentary. So here we have the spiritual world, at least Krishna in his pastimes, and we see Krishna in his pastimes, and there's different loving exchanges. There's gopis in the background, there's the cowherd boys, there's his mother, there's his brother Balaram. Souls have different bliss after liberation. So one of the arguments against that idea is that there's going to be jealousy and enviousness. This person has more bliss than that person. So his Bhashya, his commentary to Brahma Sutra says, liberation is a state of perfection where jivas have transcended jealousy and enviousness. That's good news, isn't it? All you have to do is get there, become liberated. His further explanation from his commentary, but this is not the commentary in Vedanta Sutra, it's his commentary on one of the Upanishads, Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. Very sensible, very logical. You have vessels of different sizes and you fill them up. So they're not looking at the vessel next to them, oh, it's more full than me, because they're both full. When you're full, you're full. Whatever your capacity is, you're full. So liberation is when you're full, and envy and jealousy are gone. So that fault is a material fault that doesn't exist in the liberated platform. Here's a very simple, straightforward definition of bhakti, which is the means to get to liberation, given by Madhva, course, we know what the definition is from Rupa Goswami. Bhakti is that firm and unshakable love of God, which rises above all other ties of love and affection, based on an adequate knowledge and conviction of His great majesty. Notice, there's the Aishwarya feature in Bhakti definition, which is not the emphasis given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It doesn't mean we shouldn't know what the greatness and how great is God, etc., etc., but that's not the foundation of Bhakti for the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We're going to get to the Gaudiya perspective shortly. That's the definition of Bhakti. Here's a definition of liberation. Fasten your seatbelt. It's different. Very different. It's very, very different. It's very, very, very different. Get prepared. Liberation is to experience bliss according to the capacity of the jiva. Well, that's not so problematic. There's a nice phrase, muktir naija sukhanu bhuti. And then not only is different bliss, but there's different destinations according to the modes of nature. So yeah, make sure your seatbelt's on tightly. There's some bumps in the flight. Only sattvika jivas are eligible for liberation to Vishnu Loka. And to be a sattvika jiva, you either have to be a devata, then you're eligible for Vishnu Loka, or you have to be a very high-grade human, and then you're eligible for Vishnu Loka. I mentioned already, Baladev Vidyabhusan summarized the teachings of Madhva. The prameyas from Madhva include, the Sanskrit is different, but you saw that Sanskrit in the previous slide. Liberation is to experience bliss according to the capacity of the jiva. Okay, here's another bump. There's 3 Vishnu Lokas. Really? 1. Shvetadvip. That's not a problem. Within each universe, there's a spiritual planet where Kshirodakshay Vishnu lives eternally. And the Kshirodakshay Vishnu is in Shvetadvip. It's the island within the ocean of milk. That's not a problem. Then there's this other position called in between the material and spiritual world. Now, there isn't time to go into this, but some of you may know, there's a nice section of the 10th canto Bhagavatam where one Brahmana in Dwaraka had his sons one after the next after the next. They didn't die, they just disappeared. You know the pastime? He disappeared, they disappeared, 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 and he went and complained. I'm a Brahmana, I live in Dwaraka. What kind of king are you? You're not protecting? It was not that his children were killed or they died from a childbirth. They just disappeared. Anyway, it's a long story, and I could tell the whole chapter. But to find the sons of that Brahmana, Krishna called his chariot. Arjuna got with him on the chariot, and they went. There's this beautiful description of cosmology, 10th canto, late chapter 88 or something like that. And they passed through all the planetary systems, through the coverings of the universe. On the other side of the coverings of the universe, they had to put on their sunglasses. Blinding light. And where'd they go? They went to the abode of Mahavishnu. Question, is the abode of Mahavishnu in the Vaikuntha realm beyond the universe? No, it's within the universe. From him the Mahatattva comes, isn't it? So it's within the universe, but it's not within the universe. It's the borderline. The Bhagavatam speaks of this as Mahakalapur. So it's between the material and spiritual world, but it's a Vishnu Loka. Vishnu Loka where Mahavishnu resides. Now, I don't know exactly if the teachings of Madhvacharya use the same language that I'm using, but it's quite similar to the Bhagavatam's language. So that's the second Vishnu Loka. It's between the spiritual and material world. And their term is Ananta Asana. That Anantasana is also used as a name for the deity that we saw today. Ananteshwara Shiva. Anyway, and then there's, oh, this is another nice one. There's outside this material world. There's not a spiritual sky with unlimited spiritual planets, Vaikuntha planets, and amongst them is Goloka, the largest. That's from Brahma Samhita, but it's not within Madhva's teachings. I'll say it again. There's no description. I had one of our devotees from this area who grew up in a Madhva family ask some Madhva scholars, is there a concept of Goloka Vrindavan? It's one of the essential teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The abode of the highest form of Krishna is Vrindavan. No conception of Goloka Vrindavan. No conception. No conception of unlimited Vaikuntha planets. There's one Vaikuntha planet. It's big. And it's transcendental. There's lots of room for everybody. Don't worry about it. But the variegatedness is not the same. There's the tree and its trunk and its branches. Okay, so 3 Vishnu Lokas. And the only persons eligible to go to Vishnu Loka are the Devatas or the most elevated human beings. The most elevated human beings may go to Vishnu Loka, and it's one of those 3. Then there's those aren't the topmost, they're the Madhyamas, or Nitya Samsaris. Nitya, those who are forever conditioned. You know, Nitya Samsara. Forever and forever and forever and forever taking birth. And those persons are eligible for a type of liberation in which they go through the cycle of samsara within the material world, and sometimes they go up, and sometimes they go down, and sometimes they go to the very bottom. Tamishra. That's a description by Madhva of a liberation for the categories of Madhyas or Nitya Samsaris. Somehow, by Agyata Sukriti, they may get some benefit to go pay a visit to Svetadvip and see Lord Vishnu in Svetadvip for some short time and have darshan of the Lord and then come back again, but because they're in this category of Nitya Samsaris. It's different than what our teachings are, no problem. And then there's some, this is not, neither is it a Christian conception nor a Gaudiya Vaishnava conception, but it's a Madhva conception. Some are destined only one place, down, not just down, hell. And who are examples? Like Kali or Hiranyakashipu. Now we have a different understanding, but that's okay. That's his understanding, it's part of his teaching. This is categories of jivas. So this is saying the same thing. The definition of liberation to go to Vaikuntha, that's for devas and the topmost class of humans. And then there's the Madhva class of humans. And those Madhvimas continue to go up and down and way, way down, the bottom regions of hell. And then there's some that's the only destination for them, like the personality of Kali. That's his teaching. Don't ask me to explain his teaching. He has different conceptions of liberation. Here's our Gaudiya view. So one may, according to a particular aspiration, receive the award or reciprocation from the Supreme Lord with that aspiration. The painting is meant to show there's one of the unlimited Vaikuntha planets, we're calling it for the moment Vishnu Loka, and one may go there. Or one may go to the Vishnu Loka, another Vishnu Loka, known as Ayodhya, depending upon their aspiration and qualification. And then there's the Rupa Goswami and the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that one may enter into Goloka Vrindavan. Now there's a little reference here, Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Now that's different, the Gaudiya conception of liberation. It has everything to do with our inclination for absorption in the personality of Godhead, and the type of bhakti that has everything to do with the type of association that the bhakta has. Therefore, we like the association of Rupa Goswami. We like to be followers of Rupa Goswami and all the associates of the 6 Goswamis, etc. Raghunath Das Goswami, one book, Manashiksha, gives instructions. If you want to go to Vrindavan, which is the highest, the abode of Krishna, is Goloka Vrindavan, then there's a way to do that. You associate with these elevated personalities like Rupa Goswami and Swarup Damodar, and hear from them and serve them, and make Vrindavan your home, etc., etc. And then you can become anyone, regardless of birth or anything, can achieve the abode of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. That's different. That's not what Madhva teaches. So there's likenesses and there's differences. But there's foundation. Let's go back to the initial point. There's foundational teachings that were built upon, like you built a superstructure on a substructure, built upon the substructure of Madhvacharya's teachings, which the whole world benefited from, and all Vaishnavas benefited from, and the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, under his guidance, built a superstructure that looks a little different than Aishvarya Bhakti. No problem. We respect, and whether or not they respect Gaudiyas, I found my experience today, they were very respectful. I don't know what your experience was, but they were very respectful. I mean, I was really surprised. One of the guards came around and said, "You want to go have darshan again?" And the lady guards were pushing, move along, move along. They let me stand there. Well, Shamakund was explaining, and then after some time I felt, I'm being spoiled, so I have to move. The guard came along and said, "You want to go again?" I mean, it was very respectful. He didn't have to do that. So, respect is nice. Even when there's differences, respect is nice. And we're going to hear some more of that tomorrow. We're going to hear some more of that. I assume it's going to be tomorrow. Like we heard already this nice story of a Shaivite Pujari. Lord Shiva appeared in his dream saying, "Please invite Madhvacharya and his associates to a nice festival and feast. And he came before Madhvacharya as a Brahmana saying, please go and give your association to those Shaivites. And it was like, that's a big thing. But it's what elevated souls should do. They leave aside. We're going to hear some more going forward in time. Tomorrow morning, hopefully. So I think we should end. Are the deities ready? So we're going to bring the deities out and then meet the deities and perform a little arti ceremony, I think. Yes? Kirtan?
Started the offering. So if you like.
Okay. There's more procedure going on. They had to make an offering, etc. So anybody would like to engage in some discussion? I see a few hands already. Go ahead. Stop screaming. Go ahead.
I Madhvacharya is studying the same Bhagavatam that we are studying.
Yes.
Yet there is such big differences.
Yes. Yes. That's correct.
That's,
There's similarities and there's differences. That's correct.
for example, you mentioned saying about Buddha,
Yes. It's very different.
Yeah. We read in the Bhagavatam that they were genuine.
Yeah. You want to know how does he derive that conclusion when they're reading the same book that we're reading? I don't know because I'm not a Madhva scholar. But 2 plus 2 generally equals 4. Meaning there are other Puranic sources that he was relying upon that indicate to him something else. And so he preferred, for whatever his, processor said, this is the situation, not that. No, he was a lover of the Bhagavatam. He placed great merit in the Bhagavatam and Mahabharata, both, especially amongst the Puranas and Itihasas. It's not that he didn't have the same liking for Ramayana, but he had a special liking for Mahabharata. And others have a special liking for Ramayana and not as much for Mahabharata. So, at the same time, he had this amazing library and amazing memory to understand truths. And he was authorized to do a certain set of things. And so he did that. So you want to know how did he derive X when we read Y and Z? And I don't know, other than he had other sources that, in addition to the Srimad Bhagavatam that you and I are familiar with, and based upon those other sources, he reached conclusions. Authorized scriptural conclusions.
just to add to what Sri Prabhupada was asking. This particular example or this particular principle of Jiva going to different lokas. For that, Madhva uses Bhagavad Gita 14.18. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha madhye tishtanti rajasa. The translation, those which will be mode of goodness gradually go upwards to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion go on earthly planets. Those in the mode of ignorance go on our hellish worlds. He uses this as a reference to substantiate that principle.
But her point still stands. The Bhagavatam says, Hiranyakashipu, yes, but who was Hiranyakashipu before he was Hiranyakashipu? And what happened to him? Because, anyway, so there's, our acharyas say he didn't go to Vaikuntha, although he was killed by the Lord. It doesn't say clearly where he went. He went somewhere, but it's not clearly expressed anywhere that I've been able to find where he went. He went somewhere, and then he had the next birth, and then he had the next birth. And then when killed by Krishna, so where did he go in between? He's a giant Vijay. He's not just a demon. Anyway, so it gets into some dispute. Short and slow.
So, Maharaj, my question is on Bhavana. So we believe that Bhavana is not based on birth, but also intrinsic psychophysical nature. Madhva's teaching also says the same or different.
My understanding may be wrong, but my understanding is those eligible for Brahminical training and education must be Brahmin born. Those who are not Brahmin born can be engaged in rendering service to Brahmanas, but not become Brahmanas. Different. Guna karma or janma. So it's, my understanding is, I'm not a scholar in this area, but my understanding is both, but there's a prerequisite for having the proper guna karma, and that's janma. Many births may allow one to take that birth and have those gunas and karmas of a brahmana. That's my understanding. It's a progressive, many births kind of a picture of having guna and karma that allows one to take birth as a brahmana and develop those gunas and karmas more fully by proper training under a brahmana, qualified brahmana. That's my understanding. On the ladies' side, there were several hands.
Guru Maharaj, the chapter which talks about Brahma Vimohana Leela.
Yes.
Long time ago, I had heard that chapter is not accepted by Madhvas. Is there? Did you come across that?
Do you have anything to say about that, Shamakun? He has something to say about it. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yes, it's not accepted.
Okay. So what do they do with it? My guess is they say it was inserted later. It's not part of the Bhagavatam. We don't accept it.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have two questions. Both are from yesterday's class.
Okay.
And first one is I read the purport for 5.5.2. And I noticed that Prabhupada has only mentioned the word impersonalist. He has not differentiated between Brahmavadis and Mayavadis.
Yes, he didn't. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right.
And I was also looking at one of the lecture of Prabhupada where he was mentioning for Mayavadis the verse in 10th canto, Aruya Krichena Param Padam verse.
Yes.
Yeah, that, and they are foolish. So I am thinking, is it okay to consider 5.5.2 as only for Brahmavadis and not for Mayavadis?
Well, then comes the prior question. What's the difference? Because we've gone over that twice already. And one could say yes, and one could give a qualified maybe.
Okay.
Meaning, for example, meaning, who is Shankaracharya? Now, then in the Jagan Mithya, by his followers, the term, the form of Krishna is Maya.
Yeah.
That's a Mayavadi. The form of Krishna is Maya. In fact,
Yeah.
the form of anything is Maya, including the form of Krishna, because all there is one thing. So forms of anything, including the form of Krishna, is Maya. That's a Mayavadi. In simple language. But, form is mithya. Anything with characteristics other than the undifferentiated Brahman, because that's all there is, it just doesn't exist. So now, is that different than someone that Krishna speaks about in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that they meditate upon the impersonal feature of the Supreme? And then we had that long discussion. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary on the verses of the yogi or the impersonalist or the, Brahmavadi, who is meditating on the formless through the medium of form.
Yes.
And then discarding the deity and discarding from their mind the form. So, what's that? Is that a Brahmavadi? So it gets a little, terminology gets a little hair splitting, for me at least. So you could say, in response to your question, yes, or a qualified yes.
Okay. My second question is from same thing, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary on Klesha Dhiktaras 12.5.
Yeah. Oh, that was nice, wasn't it?
Yes, that the Klesha for impersonalist is like seeing Krishna in their heart and then taking their mind away from it.
That's one of the kleshas. There's many.
Yeah, so now my question is, I have heard in Hari Parshad Prabhu's class that before seeing Krishna face to face, Krishna has to appear in our heart, in our mind.
Dhyan, yes.
Yes. So if Krishna is appearing in our mind and if Krishna is appearing in the mind of those impersonalists, the question is, why aren't they getting purified? Like Dhruva also saw Paramatma in his heart.
It has everything to do with
the conception.
It has everything to do with the intention, or you could say faith, sankalpa, or shraddha. What's their intention? In their the intention of the meditator that wants to experience and identify themselves with the impersonal feature. That's the fuel that's driving the engine. That's their intention. That's their faith. That's the goal. And so they're going to experience what they experience in reciprocation with the source of everything according to their faith and their sankalpa, which is going to be different than Dhruva, because he didn't have that. He didn't want to become one with Vishnu. It's the heart, the orientation, the heart's orientation. It has every. Just take sadhakas. All of us are sadhakas. We're doing spiritual practices. Behind those spiritual practices, what's your intention? Honestly, that's the reason I began this for the first 2 classes. Why are we here? It's a sankalpa question. What's our intention? So just trying to set that focus. The intention, the same thing as the discussion in the morning. The intention of Hanuman, get to the abode of Ravana, Ayodhya, and deal with him. So fulfill the instruction of Ram. So we have to have clarity about what our intention is, and the mood of service is imperative, which is not the mood of the meditator. And we didn't all go against the mood of Dhruva, using this other example. He didn't want the form of the Lord to disappear. The form of the Lord disappeared. Where is this?
Thank you.
Okay. I see some hands back on the ladies' side. Over on the corner. Keep going, and then way in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question, I have 2 questions. Based on yesterday's class, Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also wants not to associate with the impersonalists. So, what if we are in situations where we are rather forced to associate, may or may not be hardcore impersonalists. So how should one...
You give association. A real nice example, there's many. One nice example is Madhvacharya and his sannyas guru. He gave his association. Madhva gave his association. Prabhupada came to the West, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. What was his meditation? Pasyacha Desatarnini. To deliver. You give association rather than take. That's how. Bhakti will protect you. So then you have to be mindful of what service there is for you in such circumstances. And then you have to be, mindful and sometimes creative. What's the best way to serve in this situation? Somebody else over on the side, put your hand up.
I have another question, Maharaj.
Okay.
Also, how to address one's impersonal tendencies in the heart towards the deity, to the holy name. I'm talking for myself.
Yes, everybody, not just yourself.
So, how do I do that?
You practice bhakti. It's a how-to question. My answer, you've heard my classes? You know what my answer to how-to questions is? My answer is a flashcard. Sadhu Sangha. And then you start unpacking that depending upon your circumstance. Sadhu Sangha. Because prior to Sadhu Sangha, there's some preliminary faith. And you fan that little spark through Sadhu Sangha. So there's tendencies that are other than bhakti tendencies. Welcome to the club. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, tendencies, and materialistic tendencies. There's 3 of them, categories. What to do? Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. Keep going.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Put your hand up, please. Okay.
Maharaj, in one of the class you mentioned sentence that obedience is the first law of disciple.
Yes.
So Maharaj, I want to know more on that. Ki what should be the basic qualities and what is the elevated stage of
Wait, so there's more static in that system. Say it again slower. What's the basic what?
basic quality and elevated stage of this. What should be the basic requirement, Maharaj?
Basic requirement for what?
Maharaj, you mentioned that obedience is first law of disciple.
I got it. And then?
So, basic requirement of obedience, I mean...
Well, how does bhakti start? Is kind of what you're asking. Bhakti starts with some faith. By mercy of Krishna, Krishna has sent to your life some sadhus. And that faith has been nourished by sadhu sangha. Now, before the obedience is your faith. Faith to do what? So just keep it in really simple language. This is my language. There's a higher reality. And I don't know what that higher reality is, although I have faith in it, and I want to know. That's faith. And then in sadhu sangha, it becomes enlarged. The faith becomes acceptance. Here's an authority. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, is I have unflinching faith in him. And based on that unflinching faith, I've given my life to him. So, corresponding to our faith that there is a higher reality, and here's persons that can help us get there. That means remove illusion, and awaken reality. Then comes the discipline. Here's an instruction. This will help you get there. Is that clear? So faith. Without faith, you're not going to go there. With faith, then what can help nourish faith? Remove coverings. And make that connection vibrant and palpable. You can feel it. That's faith. Faith is now growing. And then discipline is easy. Okay? In the front row over here. Tell me when we're ready to begin. When are we ready to begin? Ready. Okay. Last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
This is a question regarding day before yesterday's class.
Hold the microphone a little further away from your mouth.
This is a question regarding day before yesterday's class.
Yeah.
Subject is gratitude. How can I be show more gratitude to Srila Prabhupada and my initiating spiritual master and whole Guru Parampara?
How can you show it? By following instructions. First law of discipline. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You going to be the kirtan person? Who's the kirtan person? Okay, go ahead.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivisheta Shunyavadi Pashanyavisakarine Jaya Jaya Jagannatha Sachidanandana Tribhuvane Tore Jaan Charana Vandana Jaya Jaya Jagannatha Sachidanandana Tribhuvane Tore Jaan Charana Vandana Leela Chali Shanka Chakra Dada Padha Leela Chali Leela Chale Shanka Chakra Dada Padha Tribhuvane Tore Jaan Charana Vandana
हो बोले पूरा बेटे रावणावधीला गोलोकेर वैभवलीला प्रकाशा करिला गोलोकेर वैभवलीला प्रकाशा करिला जय जय जगन्नाथ सच्चिदानंदना त्रिभुवने कोरे जा चरण वंदना श्री राधा भावे गोरा श्री राधा श्री राधा भावे गौरा हरे कृष्ण गौरा हरिला हरे कृष्ण गौरा हरिला जय जय जगन्नाथ सच्चिदानंदना त्रिभुवने कोरे जा चरण वंदना वासुदेव घोषा बोले थोड़ी जोड़ा वासुदेव घोषा बोले थोड़ी जोड़ा कृष्ण जगन्नाथ जठिरानंदना त्रिभुवने कोरे जा चरणा वंदना त्रिभुवने कोरे जा चरणा वंदना जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki Jagannath Swami Baladev Subhadra ki Gaur Pimanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.